hearing a different voice and seeing me start the episode because that is the reason why is because Kemper is not here. Kemper is off living the life of luxury. He is in Disney World with his family. Congrats to him. I hope he rode Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the best rides we experienced last year. But anyway, yes, I am Ethan. I am here, and I'm with a new guest co-host. So I would like to welcome in one Adam Barr. Adam, welcome or not welcome. Thank you for coming and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great to be on the Folding the Cheese podcast here. I know I have some big shoes to fill, but I'll do my best.
Yes, Kemper always does get nervous when he leaves because the hosts I bring in are just spectacular. So he does worry that his job will be taken. So, Adam, this is your tryout. Here we go. Kemper, watch out. Go ride Rise of the Resistance, but Resistance could be coming right now. Those rebels, watch out. So anyway, Adam, So first of all, Adam is we are all in the King of the Neighborhood Fantasy League together. So we have that in common. So we will be diving into that in a little bit. But first, Adam, I just learned this year that you are a big Browns fan. So I don't know whether to say congrats or I'm sorry. Give me a little history on how that came about.
I think congrats, I'm sorry is the right thing to say. Obviously we haven't sniffed the Super Bowl, not even close. True. But things are on the upswing in Cleveland, and I'm a big fan because I grew up there. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan now, and definitely brought the Browns fandom with me, done my best to help my sons become fans too. But
fans of football or of the Browns?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sure, both. And so my son, for instance, he likes the Browns a lot. But we've also watched a lot of Lions games too. I think we just enjoy sitting down and watching games, right? So as we're watching, I have my basement kind of entertainment center cubby, and it's dedicated to the Browns, and always a reminder of who we root for. And I'll put the flag out. But again, it's been a fun season to root for the Lions too, and easy since they're not in the same division or conference as the Browns.
That's true. You wouldn't have to face them until the Super Bowl, which Lions have never been there. Have the Browns? I know they've never won. Have they ever been there?
Don't believe so. I think John Elway prevented the best chance they had.
That's true. It was always freaking Elway. Okay, so growing up, did you have season tickets or did you go to a lot of games? Like, what was it like?
Watched all the games I could. I came up here to Michigan after high school.
Okay.
So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to venture downtown by myself for a game. I've gone to most of my games since being here. So I just was at the game against the Ravens.
Yes.
We don't have to talk about that.
I was going to say the best is when you sent the text out to the group chat and you're like, yeah, starting here. And then how you upgraded your seats towards the end of the game, which was your driver's seat going home.
Driver's seat, much better seats than the other seat I was in for 3/4 for.
But what's the vibe at Paul Brown Stadium right now? Like, is there hope? I mean, obviously you lose Nick Chubb, which sucks. First of all, I just find like Nick Chubb is probably one of the classier guys in the NFL. He just seems like such a good dude, just like a good teammate. I don't know, always just a workhorse, a grinded out kind of guy. So feel terrible for him in that sense. Yeah. But like, kind of what's the vibe at Browns games now? Because obviously Deshaun is a lightning rod, but what does it feel like?
Yeah, I feel like it resets every Sunday. What happened the week before is over. And until you get to the end of the season and you're eliminated, there's always a chance, and the Browns fans always show up huge. And so when I was at the game, I kind of meandered through the Muni lot. It's called the Municipal Stadium lot, Muni lot for short, and that's where the hardcore fans go and tailgate. And there was just such a energy and joy over there, quickly diminished during the game. But I'm sure this next home game, I believe they're home with the Niners after a bye week on Sunday. And I'm sure the energy will be back to being just as high, just as excited, just as hopeful as it was on game one of the season.
So I guess you kind of got to be like Ted Lasso and have the memory of a goldfish in that sense if you're a Browns fan, or what?
I think you do. I don't think it's a choice. I think some people are just cursed with that forgetfulness, and they just put their shirts on every Sunday and get out there and root for their team.
So not to just like batter you senseless with Browns history, but like what was probably this most soul crushing for you as a Browns fan?
Man, so I would put that into two categories: immediate soul crushing, so something that happens where you lose a game and it just takes all the air out of your sails. But I would say a lot of what they've done is this kind of slow tragedies unfolding. It's the drafting Johnny
Right.
Manziel, where
Oh,
man, if this goes wrong, it's gonna take
it's
two
just gonna,
years, maybe 3 years to come back from this, right?
yeah.
So the most tragic things are probably the things where you lose games, right? Like when they lost the playoff game to the Chiefs a few years ago.
Oh, that
It's
was
sad,
brutal.
but man, you put up a great game against the Chiefs, and they were the better team probably, at least that day, and probably every day actually. But what hurts is looking back and being like, man, what could have been if they didn't make something like the Johnny Manziel move, or frankly, all the quarterbacks they drafted high that didn't pan out.
True. Okay, that's fair. I feel like there should be a Joe Thomas statue though outside of the stadium, just because you talk about a lifelong Brown, one who dedicated himself to that franchise. Like he's got to be an all-timer in Cleveland, up there with LeBron. That's all I got to
Oh
say.
yeah, and not just for the player he was, and he was obviously a heck of a player, but just going through those hard years and just being the ultimate professional,
Right?
ultimate Iron Man. He was actually at the game with his gold jacket that I was at, and you could just tell the fans love him. And but I
That's
agree, if you're
awesome.
going to put a statue up of someone, why wait? Why just let's just get one up of him.
It's got to be that guy. I also love, and this is just a total random tangent, how, obviously when you're an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, you're a massive individual, you're huge. But didn't Joe Thomas have like the biggest glow up after he retired? Like he's all slim and fit and just like living his best life. How does that always happen to these offensive linemen after they're done?
I have no idea.
It's
I mean,
wild.
it wasn't like years. It was
Like
he
the next
retired,
year.
and then 2 months later, it was like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
He just
Jeez.
started not eating as much, and like apparently kept the same workout routine, and it's amazing what he did there. He's
And
looking
maybe just
good.
not getting smacked in the face every day for an hour straight. That probably helps too.
Probably
But
helps.
okay, enough about your Browns history.
Enough.
I am currently wearing my Tom Brady jersey because he is not walking through that door. My Patriots are terrible, and it's a sad, sad day to be a Patriots fan. So I'm reliving the glory days. So that's kind of what I'm rocking with right now. But we are here to talk about some fantasy football. So, Adam, we are in the same neighborhood league. We are in a 10-teamer, the king of the neighborhood here in Ada Moorings. So, one, how's your team doing? Give me your three studs, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about the draft and kind of your strategy coming into this season.
Awesome. So let's cover studs first. I took Keenan Allen not knowing he would be a stud, but he's having a great year.
He
And
is.
you should have seen that coming. I thought coming into the season that Herbert might be that number one overall QB when it was all said and done, and just have an all-time sort of season. He's way up there. Same thing with Mark Andrews. He was a high pick for me, and I always love grabbing that tight end.
Yeah.
And so you just get stuck, if you don't have the tight end, or you draft someone who you think is going to be great, but he's putting up 3 points per week, you're just riding waiver wires after
Yep.
waiver wire, week after week. So getting Mark Andrews, although, not a top 5, even 10 guy in the league, I put him at that ultimate kind of important position,
Sure.
honestly.
I
And
mean,
then
as you just said, tight end is such a wasteland that if you don't get one of the top, I guess right now it's probably only 3 guys. If you don't get those 3, as you said, like I waited, so I have a terrible tight end, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just shuffling basically every week, which is annoying and sucky. But for you, just kind of set it and forget it. So yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yep, love to set it and forget it. And then my stud, my first round pick was Eckler, and I believe we're half point PPR in our league versus full point PPR. Eckler is great in all formats, but
Yeah.
man, when you're getting points per catch, that's where someone like Chubb is a fantastic player. But when you have someone
Right.
like Eckler who's catching, 5, 6, 7, 8 balls a week, those points add up.
So you had the fourth overall pick. So were you hoping for Eckler, or who were you hoping at that fourth spot?
I was kind of hoping for Eckler.
Okay.
There were Jefferson and McCaffrey, and those guys were up there. And fourth is a good spot to be. I think it's tougher being kind of when you're drafting, eighth, ninth, 10th.
Yeah.
You might
I
not
had
get.
the 8th pick. Thanks.
Sorry about that. But super happy with Eckler. You know, you might not get that top guy coming back at you because you have the 4th pick there, but was pretty happy with where I was sitting there and thought I got a good player.
Were you thinking at all? So, because Kemper and I had talked kind of coming into the season that, obviously in the past, 5-10 years, the strategy has always been in that first round, you basically have to get a top running back. Heck, even in the first 2 rounds, that's kind of got to be your strategy. Just that's kind of how fantasy had evolved. But Kemper and I were looking at this year, and this was kind of the first year we were thinking that this might be a year where you might wait on running backs, just because one, there's such a depth of good wide receiver talent, and 2, the running backs, it was so top heavy in the sense that basically after McCaffrey and an Eckler, it's kind of big question marks. So were you at all thinking of that? I know, granted, we didn't know our pick until about an hour before the draft, but were you thinking about that at all? Because as I sat in 8th pick, I was like, I'm going to try and go. I waited on running backs. So did you think about that at all?
Yeah. The interesting conversation I think to have is this idea of positionless football, right?
Right.
So someone like Bijan Robinson, right? It's like, is he a running back? Is he a wide receiver? Over time, I guess we'll find out and it'll be clear. But a few years ago when I was doing fantasy, you just took the running back,
right?
The top
6 picks.
Exactly. And now it's okay, I'm taking a running back, but this guy might be put out wide in the slot. You never even know. So
yeah,
and you have that. Even Deebo Samuel was taken. He was back in the gun and taking handoffs.
right.
And he was like, "Well, is this guy a wide receiver? Is he?" And it's
is
just
he a running back? What is he doing? Everything.
So there are traditional running backs. I would put Nick Chubb in the category of more traditional running back, but then you have just these offensive weapons, and so sometimes I just want to take the best weapon.
Okay,
and
so
more position a little bit, right?
Okay, so you were kind of into the draft this year. You were looking at position list kind of thing, just basically best available talent.
Yeah, looking for points, right? And who do you want on your team? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'd rather just take guys that at the end of the year, I'm like, I just like watching these teams. I like watching these guys perform.
Yeah. It's interesting you're talking about positionless football, basically just taking the best guy available. So that's usually what you do in a real draft, but here in the fantasy world it's kind of different. But it's interesting you say that. And if you look at our first round, I mean, you had Jefferson and Chase going 1-2. So that's already kind of unheard of to have a non-running back in your first 2 picks. But then you look at Jefferson, Chase, you have a Travis Kelce going 6th. You have Tyreek Hill and then Garrett Wilson. So that's 5 non-running backs in the first round, which is just wild. Like just wild to see that now. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it's this year specific or if this is going to be the trend. I think it's going to be the trend just because you see so many backfields now that are split in time. And you just see guys like a Saquon Barkley who should be stud, but he's getting hurt. Even your boy Eckler, unfortunately for you, like he gets hurt. He doesn't really have a injury history like that. But yeah, it's just weird how it's kind of evolving and morphing into that, I guess you could say, positionless.
Totally right. I, again, have seen that evolution. I've played fantasy football. I think this is my 14th year now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't see it stopping. I don't think it's a 1-year thing. I think we'll be right back here next year with the wide receivers right up top there, quite honestly.
And especially if people are going to like a full PPR league. I know ours is half point, but I mean, Jamar Chase had 15 catches last week. I mean, right there is 15 points. When your boy Keenan Allen, I was playing against Keenan Allen in my college league that I've had for 20 plus years. And I ranted to Kemper. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. He had, I want to say, 48 points that week because he had an ungodly amount of just receptions alone.
It's insane.
So
it's insane.
I wanted to cry. But to drown my sorrows and actually improve them, want to talk about what happened last week in our league? Do you want to or no?
Let's go there. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So yes, you and I actually ended up facing off last week. And, it's funny. You never really go by the draft grades, which, in this league, I had an A+, no big deal. But, after week 1, like you and I had great opening weeks and we're both feeling like really good. Like, oh, I think you and I are going to, we could be seeing each other towards the end. We both had kind of a little couple setbacks as we got to where we were last week. So we were both 2-2 coming into our matchup. And now be honest, were you confident in our matchup?
I did go in confident, I'll be honest. And maybe a little too confident, I'll admit. But man, probably my lowest output points wise so far. It doesn't
Yeah,
help when
true.
Eckler and Allen are having no game. That was their bye week, and those are two of my
Yep.
horses there. And so, I mean, that's a big part of fantasy, right? You have these uh, matchups that you look at, and then you check your team. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have who's on bye this week?
Who's that? And I talked about this with Kemper as our draft went. When you're drafting, do you pay attention to bye weeks? Because I know I never do. And always at the end of the draft, I'm like, ah, shit. Like week 7, I literally have nobody playing. Like,
Listen, when the clock is ticking and your heart is going, and you're just trying to look at names, it's usually
yeah,
the thing I look at after.
yeah,
I'll draft a guy, and then I'll look at my team and kind of step back and say, all right, for those later rounds, maybe I should avoid taking guys
fantasy.
with a
Yes,
bye in week 8 because I see now that I have 5 guys that also have buys in week 8. Or you go the opposite way. You're just say, hey, I'm going to take the best guys, but in my head, I'm just going to prepare to concede that week. I'll take the L, right?
true. That's true. It's like I'll just give up 1 week. It's just stack them all in one. It's fine.
Mhm.
Okay, so looking at our matchup, so your QB was Tua, who's been a stud for you this year.
That's
The
right.
only unfortunate thing for you is that I have Tyreek Hill, so
Exactly.
it kind of counters that, and I think it favors. Would you say in a quarterback receiver matchup, it favors the receiver because of that PPR, right?
It favors the receiver for sure. The other interesting layer of our matchup is I had Waddle. And so I
Yeah,
had the number 2 receiver. And so it was always, so if Tua's kind of going to one of those guys, it was either double the points for me or those
yeah,
points were going to you. So when Tua has a 60-yard touchdown, whatever that long one was to Hill, you're getting more points on that.
yeah.
I offset some of that, but it's a favor to you for
I
sure.
wasn't gonna. I was a little bit nervous when I was like, "Crap, he's got Tua and Waddle." Because if it's a Waddle day, like I'm screwed, and it's Tyreek nothing for me. But fortunately for me, it was a Tyreek day, so that was good. You had Jordan Addison, Chris Olave. I mean, basically, besides Alvin Kamara, everyone on your team underperformed. Chris Olave was a no-show, but granted, they were just destroying the Patriots, so I wouldn't worry about him. I think that was just kind of a fluke thing
Mhm.
because of the destruction. I mean, Zay Flowers was fine, but God, are you worried about a Mark Andrews and a Zay Flowers because of kind of what's going on in Baltimore?
I have 2 Saints too, so I have a lot of doubles on my team. I have Olave, Kamara, and then I have Andrews and Flowers, and which was intentional. I kind of looked at, okay, if you're going to have 2 guys on the same team, at least pick teams with good offenses. I
Mm-hmm.
thought Saints would be a little bit better than they've been so far this year,
They scored
but
34 points, man, against a stout Patriots defense. Watch it.
yeah, see, and speaking of Patriots defense, that's who I have
Oh
on my
God, yeah.
sitting there with 1 point. I'm gonna have to reevaluate my decision on doing that.
Yeah, no Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez is going to hurt you right there. So you might want to drop them.
Yeah,
Just,
that'll
just
be
a
my
hint.
yeah.
Uh, but real quick, going to Kamara, was he a target for you? Because obviously he missed the first 3 games of the season with the suspension. Was he someone who was kind of as your late midish round that maybe you'll make a reach for him, thinking that people will forget about him?
Totally. I saw him as a value pick. A few of those guys because of injuries or suspensions always are lower in the rankings when you're drafting. And if you can just kind of weather those 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever it is that player is going to be out, you're obviously going to have a player that comes on that would have been a higher pick, second or third
True.
round. So I saw
So
Kamara, and I forget what round I picked him in, but he was a little bit irresistible for me.
yeah, you drafted him all the way in the 8th round, which I mean I
Eighth
think
round.
is,
See,
is
I mean
probably a
that's
steal. I don't know how or why I let him go because my running backs are trash now. I have great receivers, so I've got Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and Calvin Ridley as my 3 starting wide receivers. But my running backs are garbage. So I have Ramondre Stevenson, who's been terrible, Aaron Jones, who had 1 great week and then has been hurt, and then now it's his bye week. So he's kind of been a frustrating for me. And then I have like a Javonte Williams who's been disappointing. So I think I need to upgrade at the running back position. So if you want to just, hand me over Kamara, that's fine. I would love it.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'll give that some thought.
but kind of on the same breath, and Cameron and I have talked about this a little bit with Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor. Okay. So he is now officially
Mhm.
back. He signed a new deal. I guess everything is happy now. where do you view his value? Because I'm not going to lie, I don't know if you saw, but today I picked up Zach Moss just because it's that bad on my team in terms of my running back depth that should I play a Zach Moss or is it going to turn into the Jonathan Taylor show? Where do you think it's headed? Well, we
Gosh,
all know where it's eventually headed, but when?
yeah. Clearly, they want to ease Taylor in. You know, didn't want to just say, okay, CM Moss. He had put up some really big points. What was
Good
really
numbers.
weird about that holdout was Taylor was holding out for more money. Meanwhile, you have Moss kind of tearing it up. And
Yeah,
so logic would say, why would you go overpay for the other guy when Moss was just going nuts every week? And then they did. But maybe they see it as, hey, we have insurance, we have two guys. You know,
true.
a lot of teams are going to this kind of, they want two guys in their backfield that can sometimes be out there together occasionally. I don't know if they plan to do that. I guess time will tell. But to answer your question, I do see a role for both of them. Obviously, if one's taking handoff, the other is not. But
Right.
with the amount of points Moss has been putting up, even if you split that between the two, both will be pretty good players.
I'm not playing you this week, so should I start Zach Moss?
I would, until he
You
shows
would.
otherwise, until he has a 3, 4, 5 point week. I would just keep rolling him out there.
I was gonna say because my boy Kemper has Zach Moss in our league that we've had for so long, and he's been on his bench the past 2-3 weeks.
Oof.
So he's missed 23 points, like 35-point games. So it's been brutal. So I do feel bad for my boy, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I need to put him in. I'm playing Sharon this week, who has a good team, but she is 0-5, which I do not understand. She has Patty Mahomes, Jamar Chase, Josh Jacobs, TJ Hawkinson. So this is a dangerous 0-5 team. I am not liking to see. I don't want to be her first win. This is just a dangerous team. So yeah, I'm not happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who do you
you
got? Who do
maybe.
you have this week? Who are you playing against?
So I got Joe Buck yourself. Can I say that on here?
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. Goff, Nakua, Thielen, Garrett Wilson on his team, St. Brown.
If he's
No major
healthy,
buys. It's a
well,
pretty good team.
I think the one wild card on his team too is we're talking about like a David Montgomery. Coming into the season, everyone's talking about like a Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to be the fantasy stud. He's the reach for the rookies, and now it's been the David Montgomery show. So is he going to continue this hot streak? I don't know. So I traded for Jahmyr Gibbs in our other league. I don't know if that was dumb. I don't know. It'll be interesting to be seen. But good luck against Joe Buck yourself. I played him week 1 and crushed him. So just do the same thing.
Going down, Joe.
All right. So Kemper's going to be mad at me because we are bringing back a segment that we have not done yet this year. Last week we did Pigskin and Pick'em, which we hadn't done in a while. I did terribly, by the way. And so we are bringing back a new segment. So Kemper, don't be mad at me, but it is time for some blind resumes. So Adam, what this means is I'm going to give you, so I have a matchup of quarterbacks, a matchup of running backs, and a matchup of wide receivers. I'm not going to give you any names. I'm just giving you pure stat lines. And you're going to tell me based on the stat line, 1, if you think you know who it is, go right ahead and guess who you think if it is. Or 2, who you would rather have. Okay? So I will tell you this. All of these players in these matchups have all played the same amount of games, and they are all within plus or minus 3 or 4 fantasy points. So they're all, it's not like one has 100 and one is 60, and I just didn't mention that. No, they're all within 3 or 4 fantasy points of one another.
Okay.
So what position do you want to start with? Quarterback, running back, or wide receiver?
Start with quarterback.
Start with quarterback. All right. Quarterback 1 on the year has 980 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also has 27 rushes for 142 yards and 1 touchdown. Okay. Quarterback 2 has 1,258 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, with 30 rushes for 132 yards. Who are you going with? Quarterback A or quarterback D?
Ooh. Close. It's tough not knowing, did one of these guys start cold and got really hot? Like a Joe Burrow, obviously, he has a low start, and now I see him heating up.
I'll give you a hint. Neither one of these are Joe Burrow.
To know. I'm going to go with the second guy. A few more passing yards. I don't know
Okay.
if I made the right choice, but let's lock it in.
So the guy you went with, or I'll tell you who you passed on. Quarterback 1 was Joshua Dobbs. You passed on Josh Dobbs of the Arizona Cardinals,
Okay. Okay.
and you selected one Trevor Lawrence.
All right.
So
I like that
it's
pick.
what's kind of crazy is Josh Dobbs actually has one more point than Trevor Lawrence this year. And obviously, Trevor Lawrence, big name. He was drafted in the 5th round of our league, and Josh Dobbs is a free agent. So just, sometimes, as Kemper and I like to say, sometimes we get blinded by the names. That's why you want to see these blind resumes.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now you have Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback. All right,
Okay.
you want wide receivers or running backs?
Let's go running backs.
Running backs. All right, running back A has 71 rushes for 325 yards with 3 touchdowns. Also has 11 receptions for 99 yards. And then running back B has 86 rushes for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 9 receptions for 100 yards.
I'm going to go guy number 2 here as well.
Okay.
Only because I think at running back, you just want a guy with a lot of opportunities.
Okay. So
Him
you're seeing more of the
getting,
rushes.
yeah, more rushes. I think a lot of guys just, you get the 3-yard, 4-yard, and then you break through, but it comes down to having more opportunities. I'll go 2.
Okay. So once again, you passed on one Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs. He was drafted once again in the 8th round of our league. I don't know why I said once again in the 8th round. And then you selected Derrick Henry, who was drafted in the 2nd round. So
look at that.
Yeah, but once again, it's crazy because they are basically, I think they're within 1 point of one another. So they are neck and neck. But once again, we think of Derrick Henry as the stud, just the workhorse. He's just such a beast these past few years. Pacheco's still young, unproven, but right now they're same place, same play.
Interesting.
All right. So you have Trevor Lawrence and Derrick Henry. It sounds like a pretty good squad so far.
It does.
All right. So now we got our wide receivers, our last one. All right. Wide receiver 1 has 35 targets, 27 receptions for 358 yards, and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver 2 has 36 targets, 25 receptions for 274 yards, 3 touchdowns. And again, within 2 points of one another.
Oof. See, I think of touchdowns as some of those are just tend to be luck. I'll take opportunity over luck.
Same amount of targets, though. 36 and 35. Actually, wide receiver 2 has 1 more target.
I went guy number 2 on the last couple. Let's go guy number 1 here.
Okay. So you passed on Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders. And you went with CD Lamb. CD Lamb. So once again, CD was drafted in the 2nd round of our league, and Jacoby Myers was in the 14th round. So I do kind of agree with you here in this situation. I did it basically just kind of on points that they were so close. But you're right. So the big difference being Jacoby Myers has 2 more touchdowns, with CD Lamb having some more yards, but the 2 touchdowns makes a big difference in that discrepancy. So
I love the exercise. I mean, this is where if you're doing a trade, you can say, okay, here's
just
someone who might
name.
not have a bigger name. Take out the name, and you might be getting a great value because someone might fall in love with a name that they know and not the numbers. Love that.
Exactly. This all started 2 years ago when we were doing it on the podcast, and Hunter Renfrow was a name that was consistently brought up on these blind resumes because he was matching up with guys like DeAndre Hopkins at some point, and who were the other studs a few years ago, but he was right up there with him. And if you looked at the teams, whoever had Hunter Renfrow was doing really well because that was a guy you probably got in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. But if he's putting up 2nd round numbers, it's game over.
Totally.
2 years ago, Kemper drafts Deebo Samuel in the 9th round, and he's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. So it's all about finding these hidden gems and just taking away the names because we all get blinded by it. We all just think name value is the one that's going to hold it. But Derrick Henry and Isaiah Pacheco, the same. Josh Dobbs has more points than Trevor Lawrence. Now, that might be a little deceiving just because, it's the beginning of the year, but, sometimes it's not. So it's just kind of fun to do these blind ones just to see who people will pick. And, when you do it strictly on numbers, different story.
Now I want to take those same names, remember them, and at the end of the season look back
and
and
see.
say, did the bigger name player start outperforming, or did Josh Dobbs just tear it up and leave Lawrence in his dust? I don't know.
All right, listeners, you heard it here first. So we are going to compare Josh Dobbs, Jacoby Myers, and Isaiah Pacheco versus Trevor Lawrence, CeeDee Lamb, and Derrick Henry. So, Adam, we're putting a lot on the line here. You're 3 players against those 3. If you look at straight names, you got the better names, but we'll see how the numbers hold up. But listeners,
Right.
we will follow this up at the end of the season just because. Why not? But Adam, thanks, man, for coming on in Kemper's absence. You did great. We learned a lot about your Cleveland history. Spectacular. And hey, good luck against Joe Buck yourself this week. And until next time, keep holding that cheese. Keep on folding.